Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and sawadika. I am very honored to have a morning session just before the keynote, and I'll be sharing a little bit more, nothing really to do with too much on the security, because I don't come from the security side, but it will be more on AI, payment strategy, and consulting. So, I'm going to tell you a stories about this. Back in 1983, there is this Lieutenant Mr. Stanlov Petrov. So why am I bringing you back there then? In this Cold War, it was a very tensions period between Russia and the United States. And at that point of time, they just installed a new computer alarm system. It is called OCO. So his role is basically to monitor the systems and then to also inform if there's any strike or any missiles coming in attacking Russia. So what happened is, at this point of time, he received an alarm and says like, there will be one missile has already launched from the United States, and followed by 5 of them, it's coming our way from in Russia. So what he needs to do? What he needs to do is really to inform the control center in Moscow and say like, we have to launch a counterstrike. And he only have probably less than 5-6 minutes to do it because it was that tensions period. And what did he do? He was actually using his human situations. He did not. He disobeyed the policies, the instructions that he should be doing. And then he just decided, I'm going to check on the computer system instead of launching a counterstrike. And what did he do? Why did he check on the computer systems? Because if America is really going to strike them, there won't be a 5 missile. It should be 500s. And even with that short period of time, he decided, no, we are not going to inform for a counterstrike. And what happened is, his intuitions literally saved an Armageddon kind of war because they will be counterstrike with nuclear. And fast forward to 2004, because of this story, he won a World Citizens Awards. And there are movies to talk about Mr. Stanlov as a hero, save the world's hero. There are books about that. And when we come to the age of AI, this really, really reminds us that humans' intuitions is extremely, extremely important. And now we fast forward today, we are facing this new crossroads. Of course, it's no longer a missiles, but algorithm. And it is a black box that all of us are still trying to figure it out. Will these systems gonna save us or it's gonna kill us? Of course, I know all of us here, we are working on payments, and we might be thinking, it's not a big deal, but let's rethink about it. We are really dealing with money that moves across country. They are KYC, they are anti-money laundering, there are people moving monies every single minute. And there are good people, there are bad people. Systems is growing smarter and more predictive. However, sometimes it could be overconfident and occasionally wrong. It's just like the Cold War story, Mr. Petrov, that I mentioned. Then, a consultant and strategist, our role isn't to surrender these judgments to machines. However, it is really to amplify our wisdom through technology so we can make more sound decisions, use our human intuitions, use our common sense. Although sometimes I just joke around and say like common sense seems not to be too common anymore. So like Petrov says, stop. Does this make sense? Does this really, the things that I should be doing? And within that short period of time, he made that decisions and he won the awards as the world's citizens. So we should not ignore the data. We should not ignore the results that we are getting out from the ChatGPT, but we have to contextualize. We ask the right questions and re-ask the questions to the stakeholders. Now, a lot of people has been talking about, will AI replace consultants? I'd like to hear from the audience. How many of you think like AI is going to replace a consultant? Okay, one. Okay, there are a few of them. And I do agree to a certain extent and to some point. About me, why am I here talking about consulting, talking about payment strategy, and also talking about AI? A little bit about myself. Been in the industry for 25 years. And when during my time as a head of payments of Asia Pacific in Uber, I have to work with a lot of internal stakeholders. Lots of them has different KPI or OKR, we shall say. And all these different stakeholders, they were not agents. They were not agentic AI and humans. And then when I left Uber, I started my own advisory firm. And at this point of time, I am also holding a role as SVP and a GM for a new technology payment orchestrator firm, which is Yuno. So if I am reflecting on my career from being in the merchants, taking care of money movements of collections, payout, and compliance, and also connecting the peoples and the dots within the industry, and have been consulting on some of the customers that we have, what actually really matters and where AI fits into the whole picture and where it doesn't. So I have to say there are a lot of hype, but the reality, we use a lot of AI. As you can see, all the technologies companies that I was in, all the technology tools that we were using. However, there's one thing that it is extremely difficult to do without the humans, which is stakeholders management. So it is not just about data. How are you going to convince your finance that you want to launch another payment methods, which is buy now, pay later? Or you want to launch another wallet where you already have Visa and MasterCard in Japan, say, for example. And the regulators will be saying like, oh no, we don't want to do that because it will change the behavior. We have to change the terms and conditions, right? Because wallets behave differently from cards. And then buy now, pay later, somebody is saying that it's going to increase a lot of revenue for us from the business side. However, really, if you are buying a McDonald's, do you really want to buy now, pay later? So all this kind of stakeholders management, how do we do it with just the AI today? Maybe going forwards in the future, there will be agents for finance, CFO. There will be agents for head of payments. There will be agents for regulator and legal. However, even with that, it could be a lot of chaotic situations. But today, the stakeholders management is one of the key points that it is harder than we think because we have to put up with the data. We can use AI to come up with a more efficient way of delivering what you want to speak with the stakeholders. And that is why the last mile is still human. And AI can recommend, but only people can decide what to do next. So recently, then I saw a couple of people who raised up their hands and say like, yes, they do maybe talk about replacements on the consultant. I would say yes. Why? Because many of the big four firms are going lean. They are going with fractional consulting. I'm not sure many of us here heard about what is fractional consulting. So what is this fractional consulting and how does it work? Fractional consulting is as if you are working in the company, but you are expertise who's been in the market for a long time, and you know you have been there, you have done that, and you become independent leaderships within the team itself, where you probably work 3 days a week, but as if you are the chief strategy officer, as if you are the chief payment officer, working within the company. And then they will be giving strategies and also directions to operations, to to legals, to finance, who are not expert in this space. So, fractional expertise plus AI, you come up with cost saving, and at the same time, you still be able to tag along with all this highly expertise in that particular stage, which is payment. So I call it AI. They might be replacing a junior consultant because AI is so great at analysis. They are so good in doing benchmarking and also compare between summarizing the complexity into a simple way where all we can understand. However, again, I mentioned that it cannot influence the stakeholders. You cannot sell a vision. You can drive change. You cannot drive change because that is uniquely humans. And even a lot of us over here, we constantly think about, can I trust the AI, the results that I'm getting out? And then if you are not confident, ask your friends, ask your other stakeholders, what do they think? And this is not yet with the AI. So I would say 30% of payment strategy, it is in tech, and 70% of the project is really about stakeholders alignment. Because I've seen again and again, just like I mentioned, I want to launch a new payment methods to my Uber consumer, which is the rider, and I want to also pay out to my driver. I say I want to pay out to them using wallet. Many will be saying like, no, that is crazy. Why don't you pay out by bank transfer? Why don't you pay out by this? What if you have to change the terms and conditions? What if the regulator says no? So all these are really about stakeholders management for you to present your case and convince your internal stakeholders, be it in the bank, be it in the merchant space, be it in the fintech companies who is trying to launch new product that they say is going to do a lot of revenue growth, because we always have to think about what about the risk? What about the regulators? What about the revenue growth? How can we measure the risk and reward between the different stakeholders within the organizations? So in that, I would also like to talk about where AI can supercharge payment strategy. Here is it. They will give us a smarter preparations. They will make us sound a little bit more smarter, I would say. And it will also help us to create a clearer storytelling. Then you can do a faster educations. Time is money. If this company is not doing it, another company is already doing it. Your competitor is already doing it. So do you want to tag along and ride along this wave? Or would you go against it and sit there and still think about, why should I do this? A lot of people are saying the negative things in AI. Do we want to go into that? Or do we want to move forward and implement it faster? We are now at the age of trial and error. Let's try it out. If it doesn't work, move on. Let's try it out. If it doesn't move on, right? And then we will have a scenario testing. We need the tools to help us to do a lot of simulations for you to get the result so that you can show the data to your stakeholders and saying that if we are launching this new product, it's going to increase my revenue in X and Y%. And all this X and Y%, all this data are the story that you need to tell to convince your stakeholders. So the future of consultants, I talk about stakeholders, I talk about communications, I talk about all this. Then you need to orchestrate. And how do we orchestrate all this? I will share a little bit on the tools that we can use and also some ideas, and I hope that it will inspire your thought process as well. Today, we know that a lot of people talk about consultant, payment strategy. You will think about a lot of fantastic and very busy decks to talk about what is the blocks and what are the building blocks that we have to do, what are the steps and what are the data. At the end of the day, executions, use cases is extremely important, and also human influence, and learning from each other. I come from commercial. I had no idea when I was being tasked to run a compliance team in Uber. However, what I do is I have to talk to many, many different other people to learn, and also at the same time to give as well. So learning and giving become one of the key success point in my experience. So we talk about agentic commerce. We talk about agentic payments. A lot of people have been talking about agentic commerce, but not really so much on the agentic payments yet. I say yet is because we have been seeing Google has coming up with agentic payments, protocol AP2. MasterCard has been doing that. And what does it mean? So this is going to be the futures that we are looking at in terms of how the future enactions from agentic commerce to agentic AI or agentic payments. Let me run you through this. You want to buy a rice cooker, 1.5 liter, budgets between $300, and then you search. You just talk to the ChatGPT, I want to buy that, and it will spit out, okay, you can buy the Zojirushi, the elephant brands of the rice cooker. This is really good for you. It's going to deliver to you in 2 days. Do you want to pay? The intent is, yes, I want to pay. Then what is the agentic payments and why I say orchestrated? It is because, on the other hand, as you and me, we have more than 10 credit cards in our wallet. It could be Visa, it could be MasterCard, it could be Diners. Which one to use? Which one is the best to use? Do you still want to click 10 times, key in the 16-digit numbers and also CVV, address and everything before you buy? And you probably thought you used the best credit card for buying this rice cooker, but it may be not, because probably your wife say, I prefer air miles. Probably you prefer cashback. Probably you prefer using PromptPay or some others because they provide maybe a better FX rate, right? So all this, if you can tell the agent, let's say the agent is ChatGPT, you say, I have 5 credit cards. This is platinum card, this is classic cards, and you help me to decide, I prefer air miles, whatever it is. Give priority on that. However, it could be expired. So from agentic commerce, ChatGPT has helped you to decide or to suggest and shortlist the product you want to buy. And when you want to buy, it will just say, hey, buy. And then your agents will be able to help you select whatever payment methods that suits you, and maybe are running a promotions on the other side from the merchants. Has this happened? It is, because many of the companies has come together to talk about how both agentic commerce and agentic payments work. And behind the scene, it will be the foundations of you have to have tokenization, you have to have a PCI compliance, you have to not store the data, you have to oblige to the GDPR, and so on and so forth. And that is where I'm very glad to have this opportunity to share with you my take on consulting in the payment strategy in the age of AI. So, finally, do you really think AI will take over our role, our jobs? Yes and no. AI will help us to make more informed decisions, but never replace your judgment. Thank you very much, and I'm very glad to have meet all of you, and I'll be around and we can speak. Thank you very much.